Yo, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? You know how we do. We're going to let it rock for a little bit. Wait till everybody gets on. Of course, I tried something new today, so I can already see on the broadcast that it's not actually naming the live. It just says my broadcast, so we'll figure that out. Might be a little too close. You guys got something, say something in the chat. So I know people are in. I wonder if I can change that. It was all a dream. It was all a dream. It was all a dream. It'll be tight, man. What's going on, Giovanni? I'm trying to see if I can change details. So we're gonna be getting started soon. I just now figure out how to change it. It was all a dream. Let's see if that does the trick. There it goes. All right. What's up? What's going on? How is everybody doing tonight? Thank you for tuning in. This is Drin Talk Tuesdays. As always, we are here every Tuesday, 8 p.m. And that starts now. So tonight we are going to be talking about legacy. Before we even start, let me know how you like the setup. You know, like I said, I'm trying different things. So we got a new kind of internet provider that's doing this. But tonight's topic is legacy. This actually was a topic that was actually suggested to me by our featured guest today, right? You know, he was here about 2 weeks ago. We had a conversation about Judas and the Black Messiah and American Skin. He contacted me. He was like, hey, I want to kind of talk about this and how men's roles are displayed. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in tonight's guest, Mr. Bobby Geeknerdington, a.k.a. Bobby LaFrance. Hold Boom. Come on. Come on. All right, we can hear you. Showing stream, start video. Maybe I have to start video first. Huh. No, I could put you in the stream, but it's not allowing me to start the video.
Huh.
That's interesting. Oh, that's why. Ha! There we go.
What happened?
I had solo on. I didn't realize what that meant.
Gotcha. All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm happy to be back. Yes, I did bring up this subject because I did want to have a conversation with you that was more specifically in league with what you got going on here, which I really appreciated. I like the conversations dealing with manhood and what constitutes manhood and so on, and the different aspects that go with that. So I'm excited to get into this topic for sure.
Appreciate it. So legacy. I'm honestly, I'm gonna let you kind of lead on what exactly you want to talk about, because I know we've had multiple conversations in the sense of like, especially with you and your last name and like, you know, right, what it means and what you want certain things. And I hope you have your challenge coin on you.
I do. Always got it on me.
All right. So, yes. We had that conversation about just making like how everybody kind of has a shield.
Yeah.
Not a shield. Is that what
well, crest.
Crest. Right. There we go. Yeah. Sharisa, can you do me a solid and call Veronique back? Because she's hitting me up in the middle of the show. You're the impromptu phone child now.
But
yes, so yeah, and we've had the conversation about building a family crest and like why people don't have family crests anymore, what they actually mean,
right,
stuff like that. So I guess it leads to the bigger topic of building your last name, building your family. What does it actually mean to be a Charles, or what does it actually mean to be of LaFranc?
Yeah,
and you know, how does that impact the generations before us and the generations after us?
Yeah.
And in that conversation, it was just, in essence, cool to have something that, you know, you can be like, hey, this is my family crest. This is who we are, what we're about.
Yeah.
Essence, right. So you want about working on and creating your own. And when I saw yours, I was like, oh, this is cool. I got to make my own.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. It was yeah, like you said, you know, you had seen actually the beginning stages of it, because I had actually been in the process of trying to create mine for a couple of years until I did a mock-up, and then I had it rendered, and then I had it created. And I do have it here with me. I actually keep it in this. I could show it to the people if they are able to make it out. This is my family crest on a challenge coin. There's also the back end here that I can explain a little bit more about it as we go along, but it's pretty much a big part of what you were saying, that how to kind of I guess it's usually associated with your last name. It's associated with my family last name, LaFranc, and the purpose of it, or the idea of it, is to kind of have something that always binds you together. So just not to get too deep into the history of it, but usually, and if anyone's familiar with like even fantasy shows or something that take place a long time ago, medieval times, usually something like Game of Thrones, for example, you'll see all of these different heraldry, coats of arms, crests, these different symbols that represent families or houses or clans that actually did exist in history. And the purpose of that was so that more or less people knew where they came from. They also established a sense of lineage, and they also showed what people were entitled to, what people inherited. And it was the basis for a lot of different things, and how you grew and basically made wealth and just grew as a family, historically speaking. And you don't really see that in fashion too much anymore now. It's rare, if ever, that you would ever see somebody who has one. And I got the idea a couple years back to make my own because One, I thought it was cool. I'm just put that out there, yes. But two, I kind of look at it as nowadays in the modern era, you would look at it more like a logo.
Hmm.
That would be sort of like, the same way every sports team has a logo or has a name like that, and people rep it. Whether it's the team members or fans of the team. The fact of the matter is, it makes something now timeless. Or even companies, right? Like, you don't even need to see the word Nike. You could just see that check, and you'll know what it's associated with. So
Exactly.
I wanted something that would be able to stand the test of time, and also as a point of pride for my family and future generations of my family, should we be so blessed. So that was the major purpose of it. The inspiration for it, really quickly, was because, just as Black people, historically speaking, a lot of us can only track our lineage so far back
Hmm.
because of things like, obviously the slave trade and so on. So, people through years always make this kind of joke about, like, who you could be related to and you don't even know.
Yep.
And it's real, because sometimes people, their last names change, they don't know this, they got adopted, moved around, whatever the case is. I believe that if just by simply using a symbol that represents an entire family, a very specific one, anytime you see this symbol, it belongs to LaFrancs. So even years down the line, people got married, their last names changed, the generations down the line, the idea is, if this symbol perseveres, then you'll know that this is somebody who is a member of this family in the grand scheme of things. So that was the major that was the major thought process behind the crest.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then you make a point where you said that for the Black people, being always kind of moved around and taken from our parents and whatever at one point enslaved, that you
Yeah.
don't necessarily know who you're from. And just thinking about my own family, like recently over the summer, I guess the patriarch of the Charleses right now, so Tony, he was actually going over um, how our grandparents met and who my grandfather was from, what stock he was from. But it's like he's only so far he can go back. It
Right.
really only started with his, I guess, quote unquote, grandparents,
Yeah.
and that's usually how far we can trace back. On my mother's side, it's kind of the same thing. She can only really remember, her parents and maybe a little bit of, I think, my grandmother's mom or whatever said
Yeah.
that she would just hear stories about her grandparents from my grandfather's side and stuff like that, just all by what he says. So it was interesting. One time my aunt was saying how somebody actually contacted her
Hmm.
through Facebook and said, I think we might be related.
Hmm.
Because the rumor has it is that from my grandfather's side, he was born out of wedlock.
Hmm.
It was I guess my great grandmother was somebody else's side piece. I'm gonna call it what it is.
There's a lot of that in Haiti, in
Yeah,
particular. Well, in the Caribbean, for sure.
and
So,
then on top of that, she was French, so she was
mm.
actually disowned by her people. She was
Ah,
a white French woman, so she was disowned by her people. So in essence, we could have family in France and not know it or whatever. But
absolutely.
I lead all that to say is like that this person contacting her was like, I think we might be related
Right.
because of such and such and such, but nothing ever really came of it because people contacted you and they just stopped. But I think this topic of legacy is kind of important because I think we all, as men, we all kind of get that whole, hey, I'm gonna sow my seed, and
Yeah.
everybody's gonna live after me. Because in essence, as men, when you quote unquote get married, the what has been normally done is that the wife takes the last name of
Right.
the man, and then that's where the family name relies on.
Yeah.
But we don't normally think of it in terms of like, all right, yes, I have a wife, she has my last name. I have children, they have my last name. What am I now leaving these children? What am I now making of myself to have my children be proud of me? Have you don't want your name in the streets and
Exactly.
negatively.
Yeah.
If your name's in the streets, it's supposed to be for something positive. And what's interesting, right? So again, like I said, you brought up this topic to me and say, hey, you want to talk about it. as I was thinking about it today, like I've been thinking throughout the week, like what am I going to say and stuff like that. But like today, I really kind of honed in on it,
Right.
and when I thought about it, it dawned on me like, holy crap, you know, when I first started Drin Talks, you know, about manhood and stuff like that, my sister-in-law actually gave me a book,
Mhm.
you know, and I just didn't read it at the time because I think I was still reading a different one.
Right.
But yeah, hold on. I know the lighting's a little bright.
Bright as hell. Oh man. Okay.
All right, it's getting a little better. All right, but either way,
Living
the book,
for
the book is called
legacy.
"Living for Legacy," right, by
Gotcha.
Brian M. Bullock. And I was like, oh crap, like that would have been perfect for me to had read before this. But even so, I started reading it just now, probably about 2 hours ago. Now I'm a slow reader, so I didn't get that far, but I
Gotcha.
am proud that I made it to halfway of chapter 2.
Okay. Oh, nice. Oh,
All
that's
right,
faster than me.
I'm a terrible reader.
That's way faster than me. Chapter 2, mercy. And so, did you get any like golden nuggets from it, or
I actually did. I got some golden nuggets from it. Nothing that I didn't know before or
right?
think of, but pretty much. So I guess he's a pastor, right? I'm
Right.
not going to sit there and act like I know who he is per se, but he was. I guess he had gave a sermon, and somehow the sermon that he had, it was on a video. It went viral. Whatever. A lot of people must have retweeted it. I didn't see it, but
Mhm.
either or, pretty much he pretty much started about how a lot of the brands that we buy are actually people's last names.
Mm.
Where
Wow.
you go, you know, Walmart or the Waltons,
Yeah.
Kohl's, you know, Porsche, Chevrolet, Ford, you know, Mercedes, like all these things were actually people's last names.
Are Dolce and Gabbana, are those?
Dolce and
Yeah.
Gabbana, Versace, Gucci,
Yeah.
Chanel, all of these things were people's names. And for the crazy part about it is like you hear somebody named Chevrolet now or Chevy, you're like, oh, your parents named you after the car. When in essence, the car is named
Name
after
after-
somebody named Chevrolet.
Exactly.
You know, so
The Hilton hotels.
the Hilton hotels, Marriott, these are
Yeah.
all last names. And we think of them as brands now, but in essence, whoever the original Marriott was, or the original Hilton, or the original Trump,
Or
right?
Jameson. Yeah.
Yeah. These are people who actually built something and left a legacy to their children. We might not know who their children are now, or their children's, or however, but you can now be like, hold on, like, you know, there's an lasting effect, there's a lasting name that
Absolutely.
you understand. So for us as men, our job is to build a legacy for our kids.
Absolutely.
You know,
100%.
build a legacy so that we can grow. I'm not saying for us to be, you know, superstars or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's possible, but that's, you know, far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for us to now build something where your children can eat off of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm a big person. I listen to a lot of things, and one of my favorite comedians now is Kev on Stage.
Right. Same.
And recently, he has a podcast called Here's the Thing, and I was listening to it, and you know, Kev on Stage, he's doing big things. And I started probably following him maybe like 2 years ago, but just in that 2 year jump, he's created so much. You know, and now he owns a soundstage studio in California at that, right? So he's sitting there going like, you know, he does a podcast with his son, and he's like, you know what? I now have a podcast with my son. And my older one, who really doesn't really like being on the camera and stuff like that, but he's out now learning how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's asking me, hey, Dad, can we use this for that? So I can make a podcast with it? Like, he's planning all this stuff. He's learning how to do ads and stuff like that. And he's just like, you know what? If I did nothing and didn't get my name, if I don't become as famous as I want, I can die knowing that I built something that my kids don't have to go work for somebody if they don't want to.
Right.
They can literally just sit here and create all on their own, without having to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be enough for me. You know, and on top of that, you know, you're teaching them the business so they can keep that everlasting.
Yeah.
So his last name will everlasting. Same thing with Tyler Perry. He literally created something where it'll be everlasting. Everybody will know who Tyler Perry is, even long after Tyler Perry is gone. As long as the studio's there, as long as his kids keep that running.
Absolutely.
So building a legacy that is everlasting, building a legacy that's positive, I think for us, we should always think to do that. I think the problem becomes now is the vision.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us don't have that sense of purpose. We don't know what we're doing. You know, we don't know what excites us, what drives us. I know for me that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know I have sometimes where I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do. I don't know what is my purpose in life? What is my goal? And that was big when my son was born.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Charlie was born, it was kind of it hit me in the sense of like, holy crap. Like, I don't have anything to, you know, give him, nothing like that. Like, to me, my name was nothing.
Mm.
All my name was the same name as my father.
Right.
You know, and not to say that my dad didn't do anything with his name or whatever, but that's all it was to me. And
Right.
I was now naming this child the same name as me. And I remember something very poignant that my mother said to me before he was born, because, you know, it's always, I never had any, I never wanted anything else but to, if I had a boy, I was naming him Aldrin Charles III. Like
I feel
that
you.
was a given for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I never thought of anything past that. It was just my dad's Aldrin, I'm Aldrin, my child's going to be Aldrin.
Mm.
I love my name. You know, it's unique. I'm usually the only Aldrin in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I just love my name. But my mom said to me, she was just like, if you're so dead set on naming him Aldrin,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if she was doing it to kind of be like, you know, like a jab, or if she was doing it because she just wants better for me. But she
Right.
literally said, you're gonna name this kid Aldrin, you better make sure you work your butt off or you do something to make that name worthy of having.
I think that's. I mean, what depending on what. I mean, regardless of the intention, right? I think it's a very accurate statement to be made. I think that that's part of the larger thing I was referring to regarding how, you know, obviously we know we live in a patriarchal society and whatnot. So, like you mentioned before, it's the man's last name that usually goes. But then we also have an affinity to name our firstborn son literally our same names. I'm my father's namesake. He's Robert. I'm Robert. And except we have different middle names out. My middle name was given to me for my mom's namesake. And that's why I was so excited to have this conversation with you, because obviously, you know, in a similar position. But the other part of legacy and family legacy, because I think what we're talking about right now is more personal legacy, like
Understood.
when you have your immediate family and you continue to build upon that. But there are different starting points for each person. So I LaFrank's very small family. Only my immediate family has the LaFranc last name.
Okay.
The Charleses, on the other hand, you guys are, you know, oh, do you hear me?
I'm sorry.
No worries. No, but I was saying the LaFrancs, there's only a few of us. First of all, I've never actually even met anybody else with the last name LaFranc, and every LaFranc that I know is in my immediate family. So even my cousins and so on, no one's LaFranc. And you guys though, there's a bunch of y'all. Like I mean, just huge group of people. And when I think about how like certain sizes of family, certain people, and everyone has like the you know, sometimes there's different parents or whatever the case is, but when you look at that family tree and so many people share the same last name, you know, when you have like something like a crest, or when you have something like there was an overall vision from like the patriarch, the original person who is like on top of that entire family, um everyone who comes afterwards, if there is a singular vision to align yourself with, then it makes, I think, for a lot better resource. Because you might not have like a, you might not be the next Disney, you might not next be the, you might not be the next name brand that's going to like catapult into the stratosphere, but there are other things that come from just having that kind of large family unit that is all tied together by simply the last name or the pride of the last name. I'm sure you've had these kinds of conversations with your cousins where it's like, or even just said it to other people where it's like, that's just, maybe that's what it is to be a Charles. I say it all the time as a LaFranc. Like if I do something that is like similar to my siblings or similar to my father, whether or not I learned it from him directly, like, I know something like your son stands the way you stand sometimes. And you said that you stand how your dad stands sometimes. And it's like, it's just like a Charles thing. I've been told that I have certain mannerisms or even certain thought processes, much like my father. It's a LaFranc thing. And I've always appreciated that idea. And I always wanted to kind of make it something that is more tangible so that people in the future have more of a point of pride with their family, because it's not just, we can talk about inheritances, we can talk about finances and stuff, but there's also, you inherit values, you inherit certain thought processes and so on from your family. And I think just building that family unit, building that kind of relationship with your last name and the point of pride with your last name in and of itself could be a vision. If
Yeah.
I love referring to geek pop culture and stuff, so I'll bring up Game of Thrones, but a lot of times if you really look back at it and how it's portrayed, like the Starks, for example, right? It seems like their vision, like, or at least how it was conducted by their father, to be honorable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, they have their position, and obviously he fought in the war and he became the Lord of Winterfell, but he was known for his honor, and that's something that was very much associated with the Starks. The thing that they inherited past the point of Winterfell was that if a Stark gave you their word, then it's an inherited kind of like a belief that's a result of their father. To live honorably is a legacy that you can leave for the next generation, because believe it or not, your kids, and I'm sure you've had this experience, friends of your parents already love you, right? You're born and then they love you. They don't know you for nothing. You're a kid, right? But they love you because of the love they have for their parents, which is also something that they leave behind, because your parents were a certain way to them throughout their life. They showed a certain character to them. And that is something that you benefit from, you get a grace because of that. And it's all, I look at it all as connected, because realistically, we might not all be the next Disney, but we can control our principles. We can control, how we, conduct ourselves. My father was in the Haitian community, a gospel singer, and he would travel around. He was singing for years. People knew him, like, and he still sometimes sings and stuff, but a lot more in his youth and, throughout my childhood. And, I just remember anywhere I would go, they'd call me Tilifran, because, I'm Lifran's son. That was my identity. And I appreciated it. I'd go someplace, they would just give me something because, my dad, was singing at their church some other time. It's like, oh, you're Lifran's son? Oh, wow. Tell your dad I said hi and whatever type of thing. Here I am coming into an environment. I don't know you. I guess I know you now. You know what I mean? Because my dad type thing. And that was just because he was doing ministry, I think there's something to be said about creating that kind of like establishing those steps towards like a larger legacy. But everything that we do establishes it going forward. It might not be on that kind of larger scale, and especially from my experience, my family is not that big, but you inherit things whether you realize it or not, and you leave things behind whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, the chat, Sharissa says that we're not that big. Well, compared to LaFranc's, for sure, y'all
are. Dina says we are a lot. I mean, listen, we're a big family, right? On both sides of my family, it's a big family.
Yeah, y'all are huge.
And now, even in my now created immediate family on both sides, it's a big family. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Which is, like I said, is its own resource, because now if you did a family tree, And, even if it's all different, everybody's in a different field, everybody's in a different mindset. The generations that come afterwards, the connection that you would feel to these kinds of to all your family members, whatever routes they take, that's usually how people kind of establish networks and avenues towards other types of fields and things like that. Let's say, as Haitian people, I know that sometimes we don't necessarily appreciate the arts. So let's say someone there are certain professions that are appreciated: doctor, engineer, lawyer. And then there's people like musicians, singers, actors, whatever, that are kind of looked
And
at like,
they're good to be
yeah,
appreciated.
exactly. So, but it's like, imagine in a family, you have, three different career paths, like, the immediate children. One becomes a doctor, one becomes an actor, and one becomes I don't know, an educator or something like that. But as long as they are successful in whatever it is that they choose, that now is an avenue towards next generations to kind of get that opportunity, that connection. And you see that in other cultures where people, like, let's say the next kid wants to be an actor. The generation before had an actor in there who maybe they opened up their own theater, maybe they do community theater, something like that, but they've created relationships with people who come and scout people, look at whatever. I'm not an expert in the acting game, but now you start off young, and it's exactly what Kev on stage was talking about, where it's like you give that kind of opportunity, you give that leg up to people, and I think what oftentimes happens is that we are not motivated to do things with the idea of legacy involved, because it's not so much when I figure out exactly what I want to do, I will, then that'll be my legacy. But it's like, I believe personally that there's legacy in everything that you do, every relationship that you create, everything that you try, everything that you do your best in. Like right now, you're part of the military, and the best that you do there, the relationships that you make there, could benefit your son in the future if he chooses to go that route. Any network, legacy and networking kind of look at this, it's
hand in hand, yeah.
hand in hand, which is why you look at legacy, last names, brands, businesses are networking, and it's really very much the same thing. Which is why marriage was a business back in the day.
It totally was.
Exactly. You bring it very
good. Dina said,
her family's big.
Her
also,
family's big, and that we went through the "are we related" thing before we got serious, which was actually a real thing. Because even after we got serious, and this is why I know your dad's people are from Jacmel, Dina, is that my mom had asked, "Where are you from?" and he said Jacmel, which was weird because their last name is Louisant, but it seems like my grandmother, her maiden name was Louisant, and she's from the Jacmel area too. But my grandmother, Bene, which is a little ways from Jacmel, so that's why that was the whole correlation. She's like, wait a minute, but they turned out not to be related. But you see, like the same, like that could be very close.
Exactly. And that's why with one of these bad boys, you're less inclined to make that mistake. I'm telling you. Because so just to kind of give a little backstory and how I made my design, obviously every aspect has a different meaning to it. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. But what I chose to do is on the back of it, which, obviously that's the L represents the LaFranc family there. If you notice, there is a 2 in the upper right corner. And what that represents is the generations that we're starting from. So unfortunately for me, I can't trace too far back with the LaFranc family tree line. So there is really just my father before me. I know that I had a grandfather, but I never met him. Unfortunately, he passed far before I was born, when my dad was very young, and has no other living sons. So my father is the patriarch of the LaFranc family, is the only one left. So he has the one with the 1 on it. And my intention is, as I continue with these challenge coins, is every generation, regardless of their last name, as long as they are, LaFranc children, they will receive the following in succession number. That way the intention is, and if it's kept up, the hope is that it'll be easier to track down the line. So my child will have a 3, their child will have a 4, and we continue that tradition. Because if you have one of these things, and it has to be specially made because I'm the only one who owns any of these things. So establishing that kind of thing. And while it's harder to lose track of people now because we live in America and it's the 21st century, but still, I think that because people still change their last name, People, get lost, people, whatever. And if, symbols are a good way to kind of like establish a record. It's one of the easier methods. So that's another reason why I wanted to make sure to have that. And I think if more people do it, if it becomes a trend, if it's something that we can bring about, then realistically, people throughout life should end up having multiple of these.
Yeah.
Because, let's say you had one and Dina had one, Charlie would have two,
Yeah, because now
and
he would have Lucent and he would have Charles.
exactly. I've been trying to convince my cousins on my mezzotint side, my mother's side, to make one, because I'm not gonna do that twice. But they sleeping on it, and I'm like, see, I should have two at this point, because it's two that make you. That way you can make sure you're not related to people, but people don't take that serious.
Just quickly, I know it's the shameless plug, but guys, definitely please hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button, please, please, please share it. I was actually supposed to put this on Facebook, but please share it. Send the link out to other people. If you're not subscribed, appreciate it. Now,
All that good stuff.
hold on. So my cousin texted me. Oh, she called by accident. Whoops. All right. So,
yeah.
Like, I lost my train of thought now.
No worries. Right. Well, I want to ask you, actually.
Go ahead.
So just in terms of like, obviously some of the things that we've been talking about already, like how I mentioned about legacy is also in like, character building and the relationships that you create now, as well as like, success in whatever kind of financial endeavor. Would you say that when you say vision, when you were referring to vision before, are you talking about like, are you specifically referring to a career path or a project to kind of build up, or is there something like, is it like, what do you mean by vision?
So what do I mean by vision? I'm not necessarily talking about a career path or a project. But I do want something where it's something to be known for, right? Like how you said with the Starks, if the Stark gives you their word, it's binding. Like he was an honorable man. Excuse me. So that's what I mean by like the vision. But it's not that I don't want all that other stuff. Like I realize, with my uncle, he's down in Arizona. He actually has, bought property, right, and land. And he's trying to do what you're saying about building a Charles legacy, and he's got all his siblings involved in essence to try to open up stuff, and he's trying to get me down there, he's trying to get my sister down there, he's trying to get everybody down there so that way we can kind of branch off. And it's not necessarily to be in his medical practice, but just to create something. And he has the space for it. So if you want to create a physical fitness gym, he has the space to give you the gym space. He has the space for this. And that way it's a Charles complex, and that we all eat out of it.
Right.
Like, Haitians, sometimes they have like their little scams and shit like that. But like, I think the idea of what he wants makes sense. Sometimes how he goes about it's a little weird, but I understand the sentiment. Like if me, my cousins and I all got together, did something, we're all Charles, we're all whatever. We can build that as a family legacy, as where we all eat, we all eat off of it, but we all have our own thing where I can now go to Charlie and go, look, this is what our family does. This is what our family built. If you want to go to school, go to school. You have no worry in the world.
Yeah.
But if you come out of school and you can't have a job, our family built something. You have a job regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to go work for anybody else, we can give you the startup money to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think for me, where it's coming to, and I've been thinking about it more recently, especially, my wife definitely has been thinking about it more recently, where it's like, people don't want to work for anybody anymore, right? You want to build something of your own and have that residual quote unquote income, but
Yep.
it's really for your children, because when you die, you can't take nothing with you. The Egyptians tried, it didn't work out for them.
Nope.
All right. But
Ransacked. Yep.
where the Egyptians went wrong was, it's like they died and they packed all their stuff with them. That wealth that was stuck in a tomb could have went to their children.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So for us, I think it's more of, let's do something so that
You have
our
something to leave
kids are
behind.
straight. Yeah.
Right.
And that we have something to leave behind to them. You know, I was talking with a chief of mine today, and I guess his uncle died or whatever, and it got him thinking, because it was like the second uncle in like the month. One uncle in the month of January, the other uncle in February. It's like,
Wow.
so for him, he was kind of thinking of it, and it's late in the game for him because I think he's 60 plus, but he's just like, this weekend it got me thinking, I need to leave something for them. His kids are grown.
Right.
He's like, I need to leave something to them. And he's like, with all the, stuff that was going on with my uncle, I need to get my affairs in order. So he went down to Pine Lawn and literally, put money down on a mausoleum box.
Mm.
And he has to pay, I think he said like $95 a month in order to pay it off. But then he's like, you know what? I'm going to go get an insurance policy just in case I, hit the bucket before that. So the insurance policy can pay the rest of it. And it's like, I think people don't think about these things.
Yeah.
Because we kind of think that we're immortal and we only think about the now. We don't really think and prepare for tomorrow.
Right.
Or how we're living. And I'm not saying that your legacy should only be after you die.
Right.
So we should build our legacy here and now.
Yeah.
To the best of our abilities and doing it. Like the book said something about that. But let me see if I can.
But I agree. While I do believe that your legacy doesn't have to be until you die, like for after you die, I think that like a healthy relationship with your own mortality is, I think, a good driving force.
Yes.
To help you to recognize the significance of establishing something, because to make something that can last after you die is success. Because if it falls apart when you die, then you didn't really build anything, right? If you're the one holding it together. So that way, looking at it in that perspective and understanding that, making it so that if you are no longer around to maintain it, it's something that can still do what it was designed to do, which is establish your loved ones in the future.
Yeah.
Someone's in the chat saying it's never too late in the game. The key is just to start. I'm not sure who that is, but that is, I agree. Yeah. And no one likes to think of their own mortality. Yeah, Sharice, they don't. And that's, I think, throwing my last name out there, LaFrancs love talking about our mortality. I've had so many conversations with my family about my untimely demise. Always preface with God forbid, but I always said how I want my funeral to be. Not the best, conversation necessarily, but we've never been uncomfortable with that kind of discussion.
I always said I wanted a party.
I
roll me into the club, set the DJ booth on me.
I used to say I was a weird kid. I used to be like, I want a taxidermist to get me like this, like in a pose, like when everybody comes, don't put me in the coffin, just got me like, so everyone comes through. It's weird. And then I saw people were actually doing weird stuff like that, like online you'd see. I'm like, no, I was joking, but some people do some crazy stuff like that. But I do feel like, sometimes people die and then they stick their family with the bill. So instead of getting buried, they have to cremate them because, these things are costly. And while usually, the more responsible among us tend to drift towards the idea of like life insurance and stuff, which I'm a huge proponent of. Yeah. But I think that, I was always a fan. And when you watch movies and shows, you'll see like, people got these family heirlooms. There's always in some plot of some story where it's like, oh, I had a rich uncle somewhere, so I inherited X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, why is it just so commonplace in movies and TV shows? And because people are like, oh, this was my grandmother's engagement ring, I'm going to use that. That's worth something. Your grandmother got that from when she moved over from Europe or whatever the case is. And while there's the historical ramifications as to why people of color, in particular, Black people in particular, do not have things to leave. People don't inherit much because of how our history operated and just our relationship with ownership.
Or
But
even if we did, we kind of got pushed out of it.
we got pushed out of it. We got robbed of it. And so, I think, I don't know if that also created some sort of like defeatist mentality culturally that made it that we don't even tend to peer into this kind of discussion. But it became such an important thing to me because I feel like now, every move that I make, I look at it from the future side. Like a lot of times I make decisions and I say to myself, future Bobby's really going to appreciate this. And, because I hate it right now, but like future Bobby's really going to look back and be like, you came in clutch, past Bobby. I appreciate it. And even now, sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'm like, wow, thanks, 20-year-old Bobby. You made a good call then. And the whole purpose of that is because it's building towards something something larger. And if it's it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be a very specific thing. I think you can focus on steps that'll get you to the position that you can finally, like, options will be available to you. Like some people have a focus, that's why I was asking you before about vision. Some people have a focused, goal in mind. Like it was a dream that is fashioned into a goal as a result of planning and whatnot. So it's like some people know they want to be in entertainment, like Kev on stage. He wants to be a comedian. He had other jobs before. And I'm sure, with his talent, he could have been successful in another field, but he wanted to do comedy. And I think what happens is if the goal is simply to establish your family, is simply to have a legacy, that in and of itself is something that is achievable because we understand realistically how our society works. So, gaining wealth. And wealth, accumulating wealth does not have to be in any one specific way. Ownership is important, property ownership, of course, but, there's various forms of investing. Sometimes you can just, literally work and save to gain capital and put that into something larger. Sometimes you could just simply, there's some people, you'll hear stories about them where it's like they had their father was a farmer, a peanut farmer, sold peanuts all the time, but saved his money, so much money, so that when he died, the money he worked for is what he left.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a fancy investment. It wasn't some sort of, great business that he left behind, but he worked every day and the money he worked to get is what he left behind. And that money set up his grandkids, maybe not his kid, but his grandkids now were able to pursue, either, top tier education or whatever it is that they wanted. And that's why the duality of the monetary success and the character too, because then you have the other side of the equation now, which is, we were talking about brand names and stuff. I mentioned the Hilton Hotel, and I can't speak to the hearts of her parents, but Paris Hilton, I wonder if that's what they wanted for their legacy. Because she was the heiress of the Hilton Hotels, even though her alone, she couldn't ruin their legacy. That's the other part, because your kids might not be what you want them to be.
Yeah.
That's the other part too. But, once you make something that even
gave them the privilege to do whatever it is that they want.
Exactly. And when you instill the standard of success and hard work, even if, if you wanted to raise the next lawyer, sometimes people build a law firm and it's like, okay, yeah, my son is in the law firm. My daughter's in the law firm. My grandson he wants to be a dancer. You know what I mean? It's like, well, with the funds raised as a result of this legacy, you be the best dancer you could possibly be. You go to the best dance school because now you continue that. And then their kid might want to be a lawyer, or their kid might want to be a firefighter.
Or even so, like, yeah, you be the best dancer, but while you're in dance school, we teach you the business. You don't necessarily have to be a lawyer to run the law firm.
That's true. This is very true.
Business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can dance all you want. Mm-hmm. You still know the business. Just in case dance doesn't come, you'd be like, hey, you know what? I still got a job. I still can run this business.
Exactly. Or at least one of your cousins, one of somebody. But when you create it like this, and the idea is, because, some people rebel against these things. Some people feel like, okay, it might be too much. But I think when you instill it young and like it's as a foundational thing, it's always something to come back to. Not to keep bringing up the point about the crests, but another added advantage of making the crest is that there is usually this discussion about when kids grow up, which side of the family they tend to be closest to.
Mm-hmm.
And the sides they tend to be closest to usually end up where they gravitate more towards in terms of values and belief systems and thought processes and whatnot. And it is what it is. I mean, it's not saying one is better than the other or one is bad or whatever the case is. But in in my case, for example, I very much only knew my Meziton side. My LaFranc side was my dad and us. We were the LaFrancs because no one else had LaFranc last name. And then my dad does have siblings, but they're much older. So it's this whole like, I don't really know them. I've met them a couple of times like that and so on. The advantage is LaFranc's my last name, so I'm not going to be like making a Meziton coin, like I said. But it's one of those things where because of my pride in my last name, even without the coin, but the coin helps. Having that kind of thing where it's like if you always have that connection. So let's say down the line, I met somebody like the situation you said before about someone reaching out to your aunt. If I wasn't super into my last name and someone was like, oh yeah, well, actually I know my great whatever grandparent was LaFranc, and it's like, oh yes, this right here reminds me of the significance of that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And while that and this is all, I can only speak to the intention. I'm still alive and this is new. So if in the future they're like, they throw it away, I'm dead, so I won't know. But my hope is that they'll be able to maintain that.
Well,
And
you build that love for it because
yes,
again, that's your legacy. You building your name and
yes,
building the love of family for them. They will now inherit that and go, you know what? This is who I am.
yes,
You know,
exactly.
like that was one thing I will say about my dad and just the Charles in general. Like they are a very proud people.
There it is.
We are a very proud people. We are proud to be Charles. There's nothing you can tell us any different, and I think they also attract people who are the same as them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't tell you any other of their spouses that aren't proud to be who they were, and then also proud to be a Charles too.
There you go.
So it goes the same with me. Like, I'm proud to be a Charles, but I'm also proud to be a content.
Right.
Like you said, I gravitated more towards my mother's side of the family, but it's not in the detriment of my father's side.
Yeah.
It's just only because we lived with them.
Yeah.
You just hang out with them.
Exactly.
But it's not the fact that once I didn't saw my cousins on my dad's side, it was all love. Like we were peas in a pod. Like I grew up with everybody. Every Saturday was dinner at my grandmother's house. And it was love.
Yep.
So I guess in legacy, in essence, it's just building that pride in who you are. Yes. And I think that speaks to how you, like in Lion King, where it's remember
come on
who
now
you are.
That's pop culture references teach us everything, man. I'm telling you. Because what was it? It was, and they're lions. It's their pride.
It's their pride.
It all works together.
And the fact that he ran away from that, all that stuff. Once he got in contact with, his father, and he remembered, like, that's when hold up, I am bigger. My father's legacy was bigger than this, so I am bigger than this. I think it for many, it goes hold in hand, and I'm going to go specifically towards the sons, which it will do with your daughters. Don't get me wrong, but for your sons, knowing who your father was, your father knowing who he was, and you knowing who your father was allows you to know yourself better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are just some, things you inherit. Like I mentioned, mannerisms, tendencies that you don't even necessarily have to have spoken to them, that you get it. So to see them doing it gives you a better sense of self. And that's, it really, that's what we're touching on, which is, legacy is a point of pride.
Speaking of mannerisms, I today it was funny because I got home and I'm looking at my father-in-law outside. And then as he's walking inside, I look at it and I'm like, wow. Both his sons walk exactly like him.
Yep.
And I'm looking at him like, yo, it's a spitting image. But that is just, that's what it is.
Exactly, and I was told a couple of times because so many people grew up with my father that I see all the time, who it's like they'll tell me that I adjust my glasses like him, I laugh like him, and I'm like I don't have not been watching my dad adjust his glasses all the time, but maybe I have, I don't know, but it's like these things that you just pick up, and he's a huge, I mean he was very excited about me making this whole thing and establishing this whole thing because I have a younger brother as well, and I love the idea. I always wanted a brother.
Same.
Yeah, it's like I have two older sisters, and how these things normally work is that you're the only one with the last name. At least you have cousins. But in my case, I felt like there was quite a bit of pressure in the sense of like if I just was like, if I, that would be it. Luckily, though, what I don't want to do is subscribe to it being obviously something that only my sons feel, but even my daughters, whether or not they keep the last name, the thing is, like, let's say they change, like, my sister, she's married, her last name is Henry now, but she's a LaFranc. She's been a LaFranc the majority of her life. She'll be a LaFranc till the day she dies, but her last name is now legally Henry. But every member, so I showed the coin a bunch of times, but every member of the LaFranc family has one already. So my sister has one, both my sisters have one just like that, and my little brother has one just like that too. So her kids will be Henrys, their kids will probably be something else, but they'll always have that connection to LaFranc. And I feel like that's how you make sure that last names don't get forgotten, because I don't know what my grandmother's maiden name was. I don't
Yeah.
really remember. I think I'd have to write that down. Eventually, your name can get forgotten depending on how, traditions form. So how do you keep that pride within people who don't have the last name, who don't remember this point in history where everyone had the pride, right? If
Mhm.
everyone has, if everyone's kids down the line, 2 generations down the line, change their last name for either marriage or just, their stage name, they went into whatever, who knows? I think having a physical entity, something that actually is tangible that they can, look back on, whether it's a coin, whether you establish eventually down the line a business that has the name, heck, even an estate. Sometimes people even name their homes or whatever the case is. These are things that when people have that point of connection, I think it says a lot. I think it helps to establish, if you don't make the biggest legacy you want, you create the stepping stones where your legacy catapults into the next part, into the next part. And that's really the best we can really hope for in terms of like immortalizing ourselves or establishing like a track record of values and so on in the future. Teresa said legacy is so important. It's all throughout the Bible. It is. That's really where my original introduction is into that. The Bible is so big on genealogy, so and so who begat so and so who begat so and so
Mhm.
who begat so and so, and these family ties so important, um, so important, so to the point that you see it throughout the Bible, and I think that it's something good to emulate. Uh,
Um, so now Dina, she had said something earlier. She said, as you get older, you make your own relationships. I guess we were talking about, I guess, our family at that point in time. But
mhm,
also, she asks, what do you guys want to leave your children?
mhm.
I think there's a way I can put this on the screen. Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
you did
I
before,
did it.
but I don't
Ha!
see it. Is it there? I don't see it now.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. There we go.
There it is. Yeah. So, what do you guys want to leave your children? Well, I am not so blessed at the moment to have children, so I'll let you answer this first, and then I'll go afterwards. Unless you want me to go first, I mean it's up to you. It's your show.
Listen, what do I want to leave my children?
Yeah,
I always say son because that's what I have right
I mean,
now.
yeah, you got a whole son,
But
living, breathing. Yeah,
I know I want to leave him something tangible,
right.
you know, but I also want to leave him with a bunch of, nuggets that he can, take in the back of his mind. Because yes, we can leave them money, we can leave them property, we can leave them businesses, but all those things can be taken away, right? They can
Right.
be bad at managing it and lose it somehow. But what we put in their mind, what we put in their head,
Yep.
that stays with them. So I want to leave my son and any future children that I do have something, knowledge,
That's
a
what's up.
love of learning. Now, I'm not big on school, but I do love learning
Right.
and love, researching things and what's the word I'm looking for? Just exploring new ideas and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So I want to leave my children that knowledge, and I also want to leave them a sense of urgency, a sense of duty. And I think that's partially kind of what um motivates me to pick careers as in like police officer, or motivates me to join the military stuff. Like
Hmm.
it's a sense of duty, motivates me to be in a volunteer fire service, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a sense of duty in protection of your neighborhood, protection of your community around you. um
Make sure you refer back to this too, because these are all the different elements that you would use to represent in your crest in the future. I'm just saying, because
Gotcha.
there's usually some sort of symbolism that represents these exact ideals. So, just want to interject that real fast.
Yeah, so I think I think that's what I would want to leave them.
Yeah.
A sense of duty.
Respect, respect. I am similarly with you. My intention and my hope is to leave um, my children, should I be so blessed, is ideals, or specifically an ideal regarding who they are, what's expected of them. It's so funny that you made the
I
reference
got you,
to.
Dina. You're just saying different sides of the family. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no worries. But it's so funny how you referenced the Lion King, where there's that whole iconic scene where Mufasa comes back and speaks to Simba, basically letting him know like he's forgotten who he's supposed to be. Like he's the stock of kings, and he's hanging out with a meerkat and a warthog, just living the simple life. And I think that if I can impart this sense of self, this ideal that is represented by your your lineage, the stock that you come from, goes a long way. There's this movie, Sharissa watched it recently. I don't know if you've seen it before, Jojo Rabbit.
No.
So it was directed by Taika Waititi, and it's basically this comical take on being a little German boy in Nazi Germany. But it's really weird. But anyway, this little Nazi boy, not giving too much away, he ends up meeting this Jewish girl who is hiding in his walls, and he confronts her at some point because he is indoctrinated into the whole Nazi thing and so on. But when he confronts her, because there's so much propaganda regarding Jews at the time and all this stuff, problematic, whatever. When he confronts her physically, she gets him in a lock and whatever. And one of the lines she says, which I think is so amazing, is she says that you guys think that you're some perfect race or whatever, like your Aryan race, whatever stuff. My people like my ancestors killed giants. You know what I mean? Like it's the kind of like pride that you have in the history that's established for you, because I mean we've read the Bible, yes, like David killed Goliath and all these other things that you would feel so strongly about, like the history that's been established for you, and that's the kind of ideal that I strive to establish going forward. Even if it's something where it's like I come from the most honest people. I come from those who were very faithful. Those who had a strong relationship with God. Something where it's like the life I live now could be the thing that they point to and say, well, your great grandfather, you know, never took anything that wasn't his. So just in terms of like how I decide to live my life, that is the thing that no matter what monetary thing I may or may not come into possession of, those types of principles and decisions, I think that if they can refer back to as a point of conscience, then I would be very excited about that. But I'll be dead, but I'd be excited about that. So
Imp Branding says the best thing a man can pass to his son is habits to be a self-sufficient, think independently, with the knowledge that his blessings come from a higher power.
amen.
Secondary or tangible things. And again, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So let me just, I guess, go through this what I got out of this book real quick, right? So what he says is to build there are 5 key areas you need to start building if you're going to build a legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
First thing is your spiritual foundation. So I'm not here to preach to anybody what religious background you're at, whether it's meditation, whatever you want to do. Building up your spiritual foundation is like building up your mental foundation in essence,
Word.
right?
I got Jesus. Yeah, word. I know you're not
You know,
appreciating whatever it is.
whatever it is you
I'm
do,
on the
dude,
show. I'm just saying,
I get
what
you. I
mine
get
is,
I get you.
you know.
Right? Knowing that, and I agree with that, knowing that you come from a higher power,
Right.
Kind of puts things in perspective for you. Like, that, you know, we have this thing that I'm the child of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm of God or whatever. So in essence, that really things are kind of trivial when your
Yeah.
dad got your back. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Then the second thing is your purpose, knowing your purpose, knowing your vision.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know that, how could you leave that legacy? Because you kind of flying blind. You know what I mean? You don't really know what to strive for, what to do. Third thing is your family. And I guess this is, big, knowing where you come from. Like I said earlier, like if you know who your father is, you know who you are. And I think, and I'm bringing to, Black people, because a lot of times fathers aren't in homes, and not saying that that's prevalent, but because a lot of times fathers aren't in homes, you kind of wonder what stock you come from.
Yeah.
Who are you meant to be?
Which, can I just say something real fast too
Go
on
ahead.
that? And that would be a whole other conversation in another time, so I don't want to get bogged down in it. But so the interesting thing that happens is a lot of the times, when you see that there's a father's not in the home or the parents were never married, the son still has the father's last name or his full namesake, but
Okay.
no relationship with the
No
father.
relationship.
Which is such an interesting trend because I've asked a couple of women that I know who have children out of wedlock. They're not in a relationship with the father anymore, and they weren't in a relationship with the father at the time of the child's birth, but they still felt compelled to give the name to, and there was no intention of being together down the line, mind you. They were done at that point, but it was still like he still had the father's last name, and even in many instances had the father's first name. So I found that to be a very interesting thing because if part of what you're talking about, the importance of having that relationship with your father, but then it's like sometimes they do it. That's even more confusing, I would imagine, because if I have
No, if
someone's
you,
name,
especially if there's no relationship at all,
yeah, and then
that
it's
would be
like,
very confusing.
and
Like,
I
why
think
the
that
hell did you give me this guy's name?
yeah, that's the kind of trend that also I think like deteriorates the desire to even build upon legacy down the line because okay, well, if this is my name and I don't know this other person who just disappeared on me, now
So
there's a legacy of abandonment.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And
100%. But that's also built, I think, also because a lot of gentlemen or a lot of people don't have that conscious mind of, all right, I have to think down the road.
yeah.
I have to think about what I'm building. That's why we get trapped into those conundrums where there's a child involved that has the name and you're not involved.
Yeah.
But now back to your family, you don't necessarily have to, I guess, quote unquote, follow your dad.
Right.
He also tells you like some people, they just don't have family like that. You know what I mean? People are orphaned. People grow up in, what's that?
Foster care.
Foster care. Find somebody. Find somebody in your local church or somebody that's on the block, an elder or something that's a positive role model,
Yeah.
influence on you. I mean, and that's like you said, this could go to a whole different conversation,
Yeah.
down the line.
This deserves a part 2 in the future. I'm just putting that out there because I know we're gonna end soon.
that part itself can deserve its own thing.
Yeah. So in terms of a takeaway, if you had to say, I know I've been bothering you about this for the longest time for the Charles thing. Reason being, and I'm gonna put it out there right now. I want you to make one so that your sister can have one, so that my intentions for the future is that you feel me?
Yeah,
Like that's why I'm kind of like if
No,
you could
no.
just make one.
You know what's crazy? While we were
Yeah.
doing this interview, I was looking for it on my computer.
Okay,
But
but
I,
yeah, I still got the rendering of what we got.
oh, you do?
I
Yeah,
can
send
email
it to
you
me.
what I got.
Send it to me.
It's on my phone too. Like I got I remember
I'm
we
sure it's on my phone too, but it
yeah,
was years ago, so I don't remember how far back I should be looking.
got you.
Um,
I
but
have it as
yeah,
a PSD, so I can it's easy for me to find. I think I named it, and I even have the name of this. I still have the name of the font for the C specifically. So I still
gotcha.
got all that info on my computer. But yeah, that's one aspect of it, and why I would like for you guys to have. And I also think it'd just be something really cool. I know that your family would be really into that, considering they attempted to make a design there. I think once you take the initiative and actually put it out there, I might hope
Yeah.
if any of them are watching right now, if they do love it, then yes, I was encouraging of the process. And if they don't love it, I didn't tell you to do anything. That's not my business. So that's all on
No,
you.
we're not contacting everybody for the final draft. We just gonna make it and that's it.
Yeah, that was the
Because you know
issue
what?
last time.
You
That
know
was the
what,
problem.
Dina? I did contacting them and people just did not comment. So
Mhm.
they get what they get at this point.
I
No,
think some of your generation were actually into it though. Like I
no,
think
of
you should,
course.
yeah.
Of course they
So,
were. Let me just finish the thing. So
sorry.
the 5 key aspects to building your legacy. You have to now, after building your family, you build your wealth because you do want to actually leave something tangible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the last thing, which is personally to me, besides building your spiritual, is building your health. I think
Yes.
that's very important. And I had my friend Steve on the show last week. I think building your health is very important, especially now that we have people in our lives that just you think are so young and they
Yeah.
go. And it's no matter what, I think the way I operate right now is, I work out.
Right.
But it's literally because I have a fear of, if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it.
Makes sense.
Like, even with just simple things like flexibility. Like, I used to be able to do a whole bunch of, and now I'm like, hold up, I haven't done it. And I've done the research in it, and it's more of like, if you don't constantly do these motions,
Yeah.
it'll your body just
Equilibrium
be
get
like,
all shot.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't even
everybody
balance
just
no
be like,
more.
all right, we don't need to do it, so whatever.
Yeah.
So I focus on certain things just so I can do those things. Like, as much as I hate running, I will still run
Right.
because I don't want to be able not to run.
Hopefully one day you will finally get that runner's high. Because
Nah, it's
I
not
was
happening.
very sad to hear that you never had it.
It's
I
not
mean, I've
happening.
never had it either, but I don't run. And you ran a whole marathon. You never had a runner's high. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm good.
That sounds like torture.
Dina said, Bobby, if I'm not mistaken, it was you that drafted it, right?
No, it was a collective effort. I remember that night vividly. It was myself, Sharissa, and Andy. I was mostly the hands putting the rendering together, but in terms of like what each part represented, we did the research collectively, and I was just able to put things where they were. But actually, funny enough, the baseline of it, Andy freehanded.
Yeah.
And then I took a picture of it, put it on the computer, and used that as the trace outline so that I can add everything else to it.
See,
Yeah.
Dina don't know what that runner's high is, and she ran too. Listen,
I don't run, so I'm over here like I've just heard of it, so I don't even know people really got that joint. But so in terms of like takeaways, then, because I mean, for me, definitely, and I'm gonna pick up that book probably audio style just so I can have a better view and understanding. Because one of the things I know in terms of like immediate goals that I have, I would like to have heirlooms. I would like to create heirlooms. As as an Adventist, we don't really rock jewelry and stuff like that. So I was always trying to figure out what is an alternative that I could use, because it's not like something that would necessarily pass down. But there are timepieces that you can actually, like watches or pocket watches, stuff like that. Because I do think little things like that do go to a larger. You're telling a story, and when you tell a good enough story, people subscribe to it, people appreciate it, and people really gravitate more towards it. That sense of self will be established when they have something to refer back to. So I'm like, oh yeah, this was passed down from my father to my father to my father. I consciously am aware that I want something like that to exist in my family line, outside of just the important things like ownership of property, other, like a home, or even like, just money. I know I want other things like that, because I feel like any little thing like that, any kind of established system like that, will help in the larger goal that I unfortunately won't be able to see. And I think that's the other thing that we have to come to terms with. We won't see the largest part, the largest version of what is that we want. Even when God made his promise to Abraham, Abraham didn't get to see what God promised to him in terms of his
Moses didn't get
descendant.
to see the promised land either.
Moses didn't get to see the promised land. There's so many people who don't get to see the final result. We play our part. You know what I mean? And we can, even if it's one significant thing that makes the stepping stone that much easier. I think if we spend our lives pursuing that, I mean, my hope is right that would be enough. And then we're passing the ball as it continues. And if you establish the desire to continue to do that, because we're all like, everyone in a different way has the desire where the next generation is supposed to do better than the last one, right? That's just
Yeah,
like an unspoken rule. So I think
that's what you hope.
that's what you hope. So with that mindset, I think that really is something that's achievable for all of us. And then with health, I'm happy you brought that up. We have a better chance of seeing it further along.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like, could you imagine like those people who have like great grandparents that are like 105? Like, imagine being at that family reunion and you're 105 and you're just seeing every
oh yeah,
like
man, that'd be
that'd
amazing,
be insane. That's
right?
mind blowing.
That's so crazy. That'd be so amazing.
Like, I imagine like what my grandmother looked at when she saw all of us. Like, she saw all 10 of her kids and all of their kids, because like, again, it's a whole bunch of us. Like,
uh,
that's insane.
that's amazing. Oh, Dina talking about a bunch of runners high. I think I have. No, wait. What you get in
Did I
the zone while
say-
running? Okay, I could run forever.
I
This
guess
question.
if you qualify it as getting in the zone while running, I guess I've had that.
She
I
got
mean,
excited.
once you're racing, yes, you get in the zone while running. I guess you call it runner's high. I don't know. The way I view runner's high is like you're excited about running.
I thought it was
So,
a euphoric feeling, kind of like this, kind of like literally like a high, but not like narcotics. But I thought I've heard it described by athletes that it's like this threshold you cross where it's like you don't feel the pains of running. Like you like what she just said, you can run for forever, but I don't know.
oh, okay. Yeah, then I've had it.
Oh, you don't seem that excited about it, but okay. So you've had run. That's how it's been described to me. Like I said, I don't run. So if that's what it is, then what's up? That's what's up, guys. But yeah, wow, she really appreciated that stuff. But all right, so
Oh, yeah, Dina
we're
loves
set.
running. Dina
We're
loves
on it. We're gonna establish lasting legacies for future generations, and we just put it out there. We spoke it into existence right here.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
And even like, again, I thought about legacy when I created this. You know, this is something that I'm doing to, in essence, better myself, but it's bettering myself to now raise a son to better himself, and instill certain things in him that he can now go, all right, shoot, at this point he can now click on this later on down the line and be like, and watch what his father said.
That's can I just say, okay, because I know we're gonna end soon, so I don't want to, but that is so significant, because think about that. You ask your mom right now who was her grandpa or whatever the case is. We also have the added advantage of living in the digital age. We're all archived. I was looking at a YouTube video I made in 2015 or 14 or whatever. I don't remember how old I was. I could probably do the math, but I don't have time. But my kids will be able to see, well, that's what so-and-so looked like, or anybody in my family in the far future can be like, that's what that's what so-and-so looked like and was talking about and thought was important. And that's what's actually led me to, another big part of this entire endeavor regarding legacy is to establish an actual archive of all of my living relatives right now and the memories that they have. Because that's pretty much all we have. Because when the generations before us, because we're talking about what we want for the future, but we're not the first generations here. We're, I don't have any grandparents right now, but I do have, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother's sister still alive. So there's still 3 generations of my family that exist. I believe you have 3, or maybe do you have 4? You don't have no more grandparents,
No,
right?
I have more grandparents.
Yeah, yeah. So you got, it's you got your grandparents got siblings out here, or you just
I
it's
think
just
I'm not sure about the Charles, but I think my mom's side they all died.
mercy. So then realistically, y'all just got the 2, but the generation before you, they still have memories. You have, I know that there's a quite an age gap between the patriarch of the Charles family and your father. Your father's the youngest.
Yeah.
So that, he's kind of like in his own right, almost like a third generation away. That's something who, and I've heard of what he's trying to do, and I respect it. I appreciate it so much, because I think that that's really, you have to do these things with intention,
Yeah.
and to chronicle the stories, establish a record, because we get to, however successful we quantify the generations before us, we still have shoulders that we can step on stand on.
Yeah.
Like, we could have, the 2 of us could have been born in Haiti, like living in Haiti, working to come to America. You know what I mean? But our parents did it. We came to
Well,
America.
well,
Our
with me,
grandparents
my
did it.
grandparents did it,
Yeah, brought their
which brought their
children,
children, and
who then raised us
yeah,
to be speaking the English that we're speaking now.
and making fun of my dad doing speaking his accent.
Making fun of our parents and having a digital conversation right now that our parents probably can't make heads or tails of, because that wasn't something that they were, raised in. It's like, there were steps already before. It's not, so we can't discount that. But there's nowhere to go but up from here. I'm very optimistic regarding legacy, to be honest with you. So
As you should be, as you should be.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well,
I'm hyped. That's why I wanted to talk about this. I was hyped.
Well, Bob, I appreciate you coming on. Definitely pick up that book, because I am going to pick up that book. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to be on Bobby's show coming Sunday.
Yes, Sunday. Geek Talks with Bobby, GTB for GMP. I'm very excited about this one.
That's on Facebook, right?
It is on Facebook.
Well,
yes.
See, that I didn't figure out how to do it. There's a way for me to actually put that on a thing, but we'll figure.
Yeah, if you guys just look up GNP Project on Facebook, you'll find me. Anything regarding GNP Project, that's GN as in Nancy, P Project on Facebook. We're gonna have a great talk talking about some other legacy characters, Batman and Superman, 2 of the most popular and famous superheroes to ever grace comic books and the silver screen. And really, and I'll put it out here, the purpose is, it's less just about our own personal feelings about it. And it's about our personal feelings about it. It's not so much about the characters themselves, but my curiosity here is, why do some people gravitate so much to one and not the other, whichever side you're on? So it's going to be a really interesting conversation. It might get heated. Please come check us out.
Yes, definitely. It will get heated.
It's definitely going to get heated.
I'm telling you. I get under his skin every time we bring this.
I'm heated now. Like, I'm over here like, yo, this is, but yes, it's very true. I'll do better, but I'm excited.
Karine, as soon as I get the rendering, I'll send it to you. But what the crazy part is? There was all the meanings. Did you write down the meanings with them too?
I still have access to the database that has them, so we'd have to cross-reference each one, because I don't have it as a list. Mine is set up as a list because I had it rendered, but I remember what each thing represent, what, like the animal or the symbol, and then it's the database. You could just find it.
I think it's in one of our Facebook groups. If you look in Facebook Messenger, I did put it in the group itself and put down what the meanings are, but you know how Haitians just kind of always put stuff in WhatsApp and whatever, so it's probably deep in the archives of that, deep in the conversation.
Yeah,
but
like I said, I have access to the site that explains it, but I'll see if I can find a list. Maybe you shared it with me too, but I think the art looks really cool. And it came out really well, and then every part had a meaning between the shield, each symbol represented.
Because it was like a different. Yeah, I'm gonna look forward to it.
Yeah, it was.
I know I have it somewhere.
Yeah, so I'm hyped, and then we'll go the next steps in actually like producing challenge coins, because I think that'll be freaking dope. I gotta get the Mezzins to do it too. But all right, yes, you're signing out.
So like I said, I'll be on Bobby's show on Sunday. Next week, Tuesday, I'm going to have my cousin. He wants to come back on the show.
Which
So
one?
Max will be back on the show next week, Tuesday. All right. I'll send it in the cuz chat, Gary, when I get it. But yeah, Max will be on the show next week, Tuesday. We haven't really decided on our topic yet, but we're gonna hash that on Thursday or Friday, and he'll be here on Tuesday to kind of talk to the people. Besides that, yo, make sure you hit that like, that thumbs up button for us. Subscribe if you know anybody. Definitely share this video. Share it to everybody. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And as always, I want to say I appreciate you guys. Even the ones that don't comment, I appreciate you, because what's crazy is that, like, I literally got a text from people saying how much they enjoyed the show, and I didn't even know they watched.
Oh, nice.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support as always. Drin Talk Tuesdays. I'll see you every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Peace.
Peace.